bit, but let's move on to the Weyburn Red Wings, Nugsy. Obviously, a huge season last year, a historic season now. Cody Mapes mentioning that they were the last team ever to win, technically, the Viterra division, now named the Bungie division. A huge season last year, top 3 team in the league, 35-19, 2-0 for 72 points. A dynamically offensively skilled team. Their power play, surprisingly, not as good percentage-wise as you would think with how much firepower they had last year. But overall, they outscored teams by a ton. Their goal differential was plus 52. They won a lot of games. They went on a run all the way to the final. So it was a very exciting team for this Weyburn Red Wings team. But Nugsy, it's not the same team this year, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously you start, you know, in net, and Ty Matanovic is going to get his opportunity. He had, you know, it's so hard to judge him on anything negative over his career so far. He had, you know, a weird year there in the BCHL where all he did was practice, and then he went to Humboldt a bit, and then he was, you know, second, third maybe in Humboldt, and part of the Daza Mitchell trade, and, you know, got to play behind this great team, albeit, but he played very well when he did. So now he's going to get that chance, and I like that he's coming in fresh with an idea of, you know, what his opportunity is in net. And, you know, there's a lot of good stories, pardon me. I think the back end is also where it starts too. You know, that top 4, Simon Martin and Jonah Baird, and obviously my buddy Josh Carmen, who I'm an enormous fan of, have been for years. I heard he really went hard in the gym this summer. That's going to be huge. And as well, of course, Luke Schrader on the back end. So those top 4 are as good as any top 4 in the league. Obviously, they lost, you know, Jerome Maharaj, Ethan DK, Jackson Ruthven, and Max Chakrabarty, which is 225 of their points. So yes, the question is, will they score as much? No, they won't. But top to bottom, they should be harder to play against for every line, and I think that's going to stand them in good stead.
So who's a new guy that you're looking at that you're like, okay, this guy could step in and maybe help out with that production loss?
Yeah, well, he hasn't played in the preseason yet, but Callis Pierce is an 06 winger, 75 games in the BCHL, and you know, he was a really important player for Trail in the BCHL a couple of years ago. Then he went to Nanaimo, and for some reason it didn't work out there. So now he's going to come into this opportunity in Weyburn. You know, he's a great kid, great shot, works hard, works well both ends of the ice. Looks like he's going to be an elite guy on the league. Just watching a little bit of video on him, but I think he'll slot right in the top line for Weyburn and be a really big piece. Keep an eye on that name, Callis Pierce.
Okay, I love that. And like Nugsy mentioned, I think their defensive group is it's up there with one of the better ones in terms of returners in the league. But the guy I look at coming back from last year is 19-year-old Turner McIntyre. I think this guy has a chance to, like you said, slide right into that top line, or at least in the top 6. He's got a ton of skill. He's a really dynamic player. He had 19 points in 34 games last year in a depth role with the team. But I think like with him and a guy like Josh Sale, I think those two kind of guys are going to have to step up in a big way. Because I think the biggest question right now for this Weyburn Red Wings team, especially compared to when you compare to last year, is where are the goals going to come from? And I think there's a couple really huge opportunities for players to be those players, and Turner McIntyre.
I think this Weyburn team, you know, at the beginning of last year, they were not a very complete team. At the very, very beginning, they're way more complete right now. And the guy that stuck out to me out of every SJHL player at the SJMJ Showcase, RIP as a tournament, is Simon Martin. And, you know, that kid is maybe the best skater in our league on the back end anyways, and I think he'll have a monster year.
Yeah, like I said, their blue line is really solid. So if they can build with Matanovic, that blue line, and build up from there, like you said.
It's a good start.
Maybe if last year's team was an overpowering offensive team, this year's team is going to be really hard to play against. 200-foot complete game kind of team, and we'll see if they can transition that into some offense in its own way.
And all those guys had that Cantera Seeds Cup final experience. So
yeah, they have some guys coming back for sure. So that'll be Weyburn's going to be a really interesting team to watch, I think, especially early on, to see how they kind of get off the ground and get running.